Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The chain breaker. The air in the auction hall was heavy with heat, smoke, and humiliation. Dozens of alien species filled the curved tiers of the trading chamber, all eyes fixated on the dimly lit platform below, where beings in chains were paraded one by one. Some cried. Some screamed. Most had stopped resisting long ago. She stood near the edge of the stage, her wrists bound in glowing restraints that pulsed faintly with each breath she took. Her name had been stripped from her long ago. They called her Unit 37K, though she remembered once having a name, a real one, back when her people still had stars under their control. Before the annihilation, her eyes were a sharp violet, a rare trait among her kind. It made her more valuable, they said. The bidding was about to begin. A loud, reptilian voice echoed through the hall. Lot 442, one female, genetically pure, no history of rebellion. Strong neural compliance. Bid starts at 40,000. Credits. A ripple of approval hummed across the audience. Her stomach tightened. She'd been sold before, but never like this. This wasn't a penal market or labor ring. This was personal ownership. Slavery in its rawest form, and then the unthinkable happened. The crowd parted as a tall figure in a dark cloak walked down the center aisle, slow, deliberate steps echoing off the stone. The creature's face was hidden beneath the shadow of a hood. Some murmured, confused. He didn't walk like a dignitary. He wasn't armored like the others. And then the figure pulled the hood back. A gasp spread like wildfire. He was a human. Dirty, scarred, unarmed. The last humans seen in the inner ring had either been prisoners or corpses. This one was neither. Auctioneer snarled, "You are not authorized to bid, Terran." The human didn't flinch. His voice was quiet, but firm like steel wrapped in velvet. "I'm not here to bid," he said. "I'm here to claim." The crowd erupted in laughter. A slave claiming another? Absurd, disrespectful, dangerous. "You'll be incinerated," the auctioneer growled. "Security. I have her seal." The human lifted a small, glowing device from his belt. It projected a holographic sigil, ancient, forbidden, and unmistakable. It silenced the room instantly. Even the auctioneer stepped back. "That's impossible." The human stepped up onto the platform, his boots echoing louder now than the voices below. He stopped in front of her. Up close, she could see the cuts on his face, fresh, like he'd fought his way in. His eyes weren't kind, but they weren't cruel either. They were human, filled with a strange, quiet defiance. He knelt beside her, placed one hand on her shackles. The restraints blinked, shimmered, and fell off dead in seconds. "Not hacked, deactivated." "How?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. He leaned in close, so only she could hear. "You're not a slave," he said. "Not anymore." She blinked. Her mind screamed at her not to believe him. But her heart-beaten, forgotten, buried felt something stir. Something she thought was long dead. "Hope. Move," he whispered, "or they'll kill us both." He offered his hand. For a moment, she didn't take it. Then, slowly, fingers trembling, she reached out, and in that moment, hand to hand, everything changed. They ran through halls lit in sickly green, Past guards were too stunned to fire. Down into the lower corridors of the station where rust ate through the walls and shadows whispered. He didn't speak much, but he didn't let go of her hand either. "What's your name?" she asked as they hid behind a bulkhead, panting. He looked at her like the question caught him off guard. "Elias," he finally said. "Elias Ward. And why me?" His eyes held something more than pity, a memory, a reason. "Because someone once pulled me out of a cage," he said. "Now it's my turn." Before she could respond, alarms blared. Red lights bathed the corridor in warning. The auction house had activated a lockdown. "We need to move," Elias said, tapping his wristband. A flicker of static answers, then silence. "Damn it, they've jammed the exits." "Then we're trapped." "No." He looked down a dark hallway that led into the belly of the station. "There's another way." She hesitated. "That leads to the dead sectors." "No air. No power. No scanners," Elias finished. "And maybe, if we're lucky, no guards." As they slipped into the darkness, she asked, "What was that seal you showed them?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, "Something older than this empire." "And it's not mine. It's yours." Her heart skipped a beat. "Mine?" Elias stopped walking, turned to her. "You were never just a slave," he said quietly. "You were hidden." A silence stretched between them. Then he added, "And now, they'll kill to keep that secret buried." What he knows, the deeper they went, the colder it got. Caltha, yes. That name was stirring again in her mind, though she still wasn't sure if it was truly hers, followed closely behind Elias, the strange human who had broken her chains. With nothing but an outlawed seal and a fire in his voice, the abandoned corridors of the slave market's dead sectors were eerily silent. Lights flickered, walls hissed with ancient pressure leaks, and the air smelled of rust and forgotten systems. These tunnels weren't meant for travel. They were meant to be buried. She kept her distance as they moved, watching Elias's every step. His movements were sharp, practiced like a soldier, but there was something more in the way he occasionally paused to scan the walls, or how he tapped his wristband and whispered to himself, "Not military standard." "Something else. How did you find me?" she finally asked. Elias glanced back, his face dimly lit by the soft green glow of an overhead emergency panel. "I didn't," he said. "I was looking for something else." "And found you instead." "Something else?" He didn't respond. Just turned back and kept walking. She followed, unease curling in her stomach. "Why do you care what happens to me?" That time he didn't stop walking, but he did answer. "Because your kind was erased, and yet you're still here." Caltha froze in place. Her kind? She had memories fractured, faint of floating lights, stone cities that shimmered under twin moons, voices that spoke in tones that vibrated through the soul. All gone, lost to time or war. The only thing the slavers ever told her was that she was the last model worth selling. "What do you know about my people?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Elias turned, finally stopping, his expression unreadable. "Enough to know you were never meant to be someone's property," he said. "And enough to know that if they've been hiding you all this time, then you're the key to something they desperately want to stay buried." Before she could process that, his wristband buzzed faintly, as though punching through a blockade. A voice crackled. Elias, this is Relin. You've triggered every net in the outer ring. They'll be on you in less than 10 minutes. Kelphas. Pulse jumped. Elias responded calmly. We're heading to the maintenance drop on Level V prep extraction window. Level 5? That place hasn't been powered in decades. Just do it. The signal cut. Kelpha stepped forward. Why are they helping you? You're not just a rogue, are you? Elias hesitated, then answered with something that made her stomach twist. I'm supposed to be dead. They reached a sealed blast door, its controls half fused with rust. Elias dug a plasma cutter from his pack and began working in silence. Sparks flew as he carved through layers of neglect. Kelpha's thoughts spun. Who was he? Why did he have access to Forbidden's codes? And why did her chest ache every time he looked at her, not with pity, but with a kind of respect she hadn't felt in years? The door groaned open. Beyond it lay a small chamber filled with shattered machinery, cracked stasis pods, and broken glass. A dark laboratory, untouched by light or life. Kelpha stepped inside. Her breath caught. This place felt familiar. She walked slowly past each broken chamber, her fingers brushing the edges of ancient tech that seemed to react to her touch. Soft hums, flickers of dormant power. One pod was still intact. The label beneath it was covered in dust. She wiped it clean. Her heart stopped. Designation: Kelpha, Primary Neural Interface Prototype. She stumbled back, nearly falling. What is this? She gasped. Elias stepped beside her, voice low. This is where they tried to bury you. He pointed to the far wall where an old terminal still blinked weakly. Your DNA wasn't just alien, he said. It was engineered, laced with code. Neural, synthetic, organic merged into something that shouldn't be possible. You weren't just someone's daughter, Kelpha. You were designed. Her knees trembled. She looked at the pod again. The same shape, the same curve of metal that had haunted her dreams. Not memories, nightmares. I was an experiment, she whispered. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. No, you were a key. To what? To a civilization they couldn't control. A technology that responded to emotion, to will, to conscience. That scared the hell out of them, so they wiped it out. But you were too valuable to destroy, so they enslaved you instead. Kelpha's hands balled into fists. Everything made sense now. The way her body sometimes pulsed with power during moments of rage, the visions, the voices. It hadn't been madness, it had been memory. But why rescue me? She asked again, almost pleading. What do you want out of this? Elias looked down, his face briefly shadowed by guilt. Because I helped design the systems that tracked your people down. I thought we were fighting a war. I didn't know we were committing genocide. Silence fell between them. She stared at him, unsure whether to scream or cry. And now, Elias added, I'm trying to make it right. A loud clang rang out from the hallway. Elias spun, drawing a compact plasma pistol. Kelpha moved without thinking, reaching for a panel on the lab wall. The old system pulsed to life, responding to her, and sealed the bulkhead door just in time as blaster fire rained from outside. Elias looked at her, stunned. You remembered how to do that? She didn't look at him. I didn't remember. I felt it. Outside, pounding footsteps and furious roars echoed. Elias moved to her side. We need to move now. If they take you alive again, they'll dissect you. Keltha looked at him, and for the first time in her life, she nodded, not in fear, but in purpose. Then let's make sure they never get the chance. The hidden Kota Keltha didn't sleep that night. Not that she could. Her mind was a storm of broken memories and questions no one had ever let her ask. She sat in the cold, dusty lab where her old stasis pod lay cracked and silent. Her fingers traced the edge of the terminal Elias had reactivated. The screen still displayed her name, flickering in faded glyphs. Underneath it, more lines scrolled, lines that looked less like language and more like code. Elias knelt nearby, repairing a comms node with quiet focus. The faint hum of the old tech and the distant rumble of the station's systems created a kind of rhythm between them. Finally, she spoke. You said I was a key to something they feared. Elias didn't look up. Yes. But you also said you were part of what hunted us. I was. Then why are you helping me now? What changed? He stopped working. Silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, he stood and faced her. You weren't the only thing they buried. She looked up at him, confused. Elias tapped the side of his head. They buried us too. Humans, scientists, soldiers, anyone who asked the wrong questions. We thought we were the good guys, liberators, bringing order to chaos. But the deeper we went, the more we found out, and the more they erased. He walked over to the terminal and pointed to the strange lines of code. Do you know what this is?
She shook her head. It's not just data, it's adaptive.
It changes based on who's interacting with it. You respond to it like no one else can. Why? Because you're bonded to it on a neural level. Not biologically, consciously. She blinked. You're saying it reads my thoughts? No, it reads your will. Keltha stared at the code, which had begun to pulse softly, almost like it was breathing with her. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the strange lights. She felt connected. Then what was I made for? She asked. Elias hesitated. That's the part no one could figure out. The labs we raided found thousands of lines like this in the ruins of your civilization. Some tried to decode it. Others tried to replicate it. But only your kind could activate it. We assumed it was a weapon. And is it? I don't think so. Not in the way they feared. Suddenly, the old terminal flickered violently. A surge of energy rippled through the lab. Lights pulsed, machinery rattled. Keltha gasped, stepping back. Is it breaking? She asked. No, Elias said, eyes wide. It's waking up. The screen is filled with symbols. Then a diagram appeared, schematic lines and swirling circuits. At the center, a small sphere of energy. Elias leaned closer. That's a memory core, a map, and a lock. Keltha stepped forward. A lock for what? Elias traced a glowing line. This design, it's not for war. It's a storage matrix. A repository. If I'm right, your people didn't just build weapons. They built something to preserve knowledge. Everything they were, culture, science, history, was encoded and hidden. And now it wants me to unlock it? I think so. But you're not ready yet. Keltha frowned. Why? He turned to her gently. Because it only activates fully when you're in alignment, mind, body, and purpose. It's not just reading your thoughts, Kelfa. It's responding to your identity. But I don't even know who I am. That's the point. The ground beneath them trembled. Distant explosions echoed. Kelfa flinched. They found us. Elias grabbed his gear. We need to get off this level. I was hoping we'd have more time. How do we get out? There's an old transport chute connected to the vent lines. It'll take us to a neutral zone. If we're lucky, it'll still be stable. They packed quickly, and as they turned to leave, Kelfa paused. What? About the data? Elias hesitated, then reached into his belt and pulled out a neural capsule. Already copied, he said. I'm not making the same mistake twice. The chute was narrow, filled with metal dust and cold air. They slid down in silence, listening for pursuit. At the end of the tunnel, a small hatch opened into a forgotten maintenance wing near the outer docking bay. Kelfa stopped short. 3 armed figures waited near the exit tall, hooded, silent. Elias raised his weapon. Stand down. One of the figures stepped forward and lifted their hood. A female alien, older than Kelfa, her skin marked with luminous scars and her eyes glowing faintly. You made it, she said softly. Kelfa froze. Who? The woman smiled. We are the remnants, she said. The last of those who escaped the purge, and we've been looking for you. Kelfa started, her heart thudding. You know who I am? We know who you were, but more importantly, we know what you could become. Elias lowered his weapon slightly. You knew she was alive? The woman nodded. We didn't know where, until now. Kelfa stepped forward. Then tell me, why was I made? What is this power inside me? The woman's smile faded. Because you were meant to restore what was lost, but now others want to use you to control it instead. Elias stepped beside Kelfa, and they're closing in fast. The woman gestured to a hidden hatch. Come, there's something you both need to see. Kelfa hesitated then, followed. Her steps no longer felt like those of a slave. They felt like the footsteps of someone who had finally stepped into the unknown, ready to find out who she truly was, the Forbiddance device, the hidden remnant. Base was buried deep within the skeletal remains of a shattered moon, cloaked in radiation and silence. On the surface, the moon looked lifeless, cracked and cold, its atmosphere long gone. But beneath its crust, tunnels stretched like veins, leading to chambers alive with alien hums and flickering lights powered by forgotten technologies. Kelfa stood at the edge of a wide chamber, staring at something that made her breath catch. A sphere floated in the center of the room, perfectly smooth, black as the void, with streams of golden energy pulsing just beneath its surface. The air around it rippled slightly, like the heat above a flame. Even Elias, who had seen war machines and planetary AI cores, looked shaken. That's it, he murmured. The Restoration Corps. The remnant leader Sarah nodded solemnly. The last one. The only one not destroyed in the purge. We've guarded it for over a century, waiting for the right mind to awaken it. Kelfa took a slow step toward it. And you think that's me? Sarah tilted her head. It doesn't matter what we think. It's what it chooses. Elias placed a hand gently on Kelfa's shoulder. You don't have to do this now. But Kelfa stepped forward anyway. She didn't know what drove her curiosity, instinct or something buried deeper, but the moment she approached, the core pulsed. The golden veins expanded, swirling with rapid motion. The entire room brightened, and the walls vibrated with a low hum. Kelva reached out with trembling fingers, and as her hand touched the surface, her mind shattered. She stood in darkness. Then, a flash of stars, 1,000 voices, a galaxy burning. Her world, her people screaming, then silenced. But beneath the chaos, a whisper, not all must be lost. She saw herself younger, brighter, standing among tall, robed beings. A ceremony, a vow. They placed a crystal-like thread across her forehead, and the world shimmered. She had agreed to become something more than herself. A vault, a living key to their legacy. The thread turned into light, entered her, changed her. Her DNA, her mind, her soul merged with an alien technology that wasn't made to destroy. It was made to preserve. And then, betrayal, fire, chains. Silence. Kelva gasped as she collapsed to the ground, Elias catching her before she hit the floor. Her body trembled, her skin glowing faintly with a golden shimmer. It faded quickly, but not before the remnants stared in awe. She connected, Sarah whispered. The core accepted her. Elias knelt beside her. What did you see? Kelva looked up, eyes wide with realization. They didn't build a weapon. They built memory, knowledge. Everything they were, it's stored inside the cores. I'm not a weapon. I'm a library, a living archive. Sarah nodded. And now the last library. But why hide it? Elias asked. Why not protect it openly? Sarah's eyes darkened. Because knowledge is more dangerous than any bomb. The syndicate feared it. They feared her kind, feared what would happen if truth spread. Kelva struggled to her feet. Then we release it, all of it, across the networks. Let every species remember what was lost. No, Sarah said firmly. The core doesn't just store information. It interfaces with connected systems. That's why the Empire wants it. If they get her, they won't just learn from it. They'll use her to control every system she touches. Every AI, every starship, every drone. She become the ultimate override key. Elias turned to Kelva. So if you activate fully, you could either free the galaxy or become its prison. The chamber went silent. Suddenly, a deafening boom shook the tunnel. Dust rained from the ceiling. Distant alarms shrieked. One of the remnant scouts burst into the room. They've found us. A strike fleet just jumped into orbit. They're deploying drop units. Kelva's pulse raced. Sarah turned to Elias. You brought them here? No, Elias growled. They've been tracking her. Probably since she activated that terminal on the auction station. Kelva felt the weight of every decision pressing down on her. What do we do? She asked. Sarah's eyes flicked toward the core. We can't move it. And if they take it, everything ends. Elias looked at Kelva. Then maybe it's time. To do what? To make a choice. In the heart of the collapsing moon base, Kelva stepped back toward the core. Her fear didn't vanish, but it changed. It sharpened, became focus. She placed both hands on the surface again. Golden light erupted. All around her, dead systems came to life. Screens flickered. Ancient consoles lit up. A wave of energy spread through the tunnels. Outside, drop ships approaching the surface suddenly spun off course. Power systems failed. Targeting sensors glitched. Entire platoons of syndicate drones dropped limp from the sky. Inside, Kaltha's eyes glowed. Elias stepped back, stunned. "You're doing it. I'm not using it to fight," she said. "I'm using it to wake them up." But suddenly, her expression shifted. Pain. She gritted her teeth. "There's something else." "What is it?" Elias asked urgently. "They built a fail-safe. If I go too far, it'll trigger a collapse." "Of me." Sarah's face went pale. "A mental kill switch." "Then stop?" Elias said. Kaltha shook her head. "No, this is what I was made for, but you'll die." She turned to him, glowing eyes soft. "I'd rather die free, knowing I gave others the truth, than live another day as a slave to silence." The chamber shook again as another explosion rocked the tunnels. The choice had to be made now. Elias took a step forward. "Then I'm staying with you." "No," Kaltha whispered. "You'll carry what I unlock." Her hands glowed brighter. Her voice echoed, deeper, now layered with ancient tones. And then, release. A wave of light exploded from the chamber. Not fire. Not death. Information. Data flowed through networks like wind through trees, across stars, into systems long dark, into minds that had forgotten. Every race, every world connected to the old networks began receiving fragments of truth, a legacy reborn. Kaltha collapsed. Elias caught her body cold, heart slowing. "No, no, no, no," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "You're the spark now." And then her eyes closed. The human sparkle Bevend lay still in his arms, weightless and warm like something caught between life and light. Elias didn't cry. Not yet. His breath came in silent, shaky gasps as the final golden pulses faded from her skin and vanished into the void. The restoration core dimmed, then dissolved, literally disintegrating into light, as if completing its purpose. And Elias was left behind. Around him, the remnants moved quietly. Some dropped to their knees. Others stood stunned, whispering prayers in long-forgotten tongues. Sarah approached slowly, her face pale but reverent. "She did it," Sarah whispered. "She woke the network. I can feel it in the air like the galaxy just took a breath after centuries of silence." Elias couldn't speak. His hands still cradled Kaltha's face, searching for warmth, motion, anything. But she was still, too still. Then, as he leaned in to press his forehead to hers, something shifted. A spark, barely there. A flicker of light between them. His vision blurred not with tears, but with a flash of foreign images, colors, and sound. He was standing inside a memory not his own. A tower of crystal, beings of energy, Kaltha's as a child, laughing, speaking in layered languages, looking up at a star and calling it by name. Then darkness. Chains. And him. Touch. The spark strengthened. Elias stumbled back, gasping, and Kaltha's body pulsed just once. The remnants recoiled in shock. "She's reacting," Sarah breathed. "But how?" Elias looked at his hands. They were glowing, dimly, like a faded echo of Kaltha's shimmer. His veins, his skin lit from within. He shook his head. This isn't right. I'm not like her." Sarah narrowed her eyes. She must have passed part of the interface. To you, when she overloaded the core, it bonded. Bonded? You're linked now. Not just physically, neurologically, spiritually. Your consciousness is carrying fragments of hers. Elias's heart pounded. So she's not completely gone? Sarah hesitated. No, but she's not alive either. You're the conduit now. Suddenly, a deafening blast rocked the chamber. A metal wall exploded inward as syndicate troops burst through tall, armored, eyes glowing with blue command light. A dozen plasma rifles aimed forward. On the ground, one barked. Now! Elias stood slowly, shielding Caltha's body. His arms tingled with energy. The soldiers paused. One of them, a captain by his insignia, stepped forward. His voice was cold and mechanical. We detected a restoration event from this sector. The core must be secured for analysis. Sarah shouted, You're too late. The core is gone. The captain tilted his head. Impossible. The energy signature is still active. His gaze settled on Elias. You, he said flatly, you're carrying it. Before anyone could react, Elias raised his hand and the weapons the soldiers were holding shut down, just like that. No bullets. No explosions. They simply powered off. Sparks flew from their armor as override protocols failed. The soldiers stumbled, blinking, trying to regain function, but Elias stepped forward, voice low and firm. Leave now. The captain raised his arm to signal retreat, but not before whispering, They'll send the executors next. You won't survive them. Then the troops vanished into the smoke. Later, as quietly settled and the remnants began to evacuate, Elias sat alone beside Caltha's body, which had been wrapped gently in cloth woven from ancient ceremonial silk. He stared at the flickering firelight, unsure of what he had become. I didn't ask for this, he whispered to the air. And then a voice answered. Not out loud, but inside. Familiar, gentle, her. I know. He jolted upright. Caltha, not all of me. Just enough. He touched his chest, feeling the pulse within, not just a heartbeat, but something layered. Her thoughts, her will. Not dominating, but coexisting. She had given him more than just memories. She had given him a piece of her consciousness. When the remnant shuttle took off from the moon's surface, Elias sat in the corner, silent. Sarah joined him. You're not just carrying a legacy, she said. You're carrying a decision. He didn't answer. You could run, she continued. Disappear. They'll chase you. But if you hide, the truth Caltha unleashed will scatter and fade. Elias looked up. What do you want me to do? Turn into some kind of prophet? No, she said softly. Just a human brave enough to finish what she started. The next day, the network lit up again. Across dozens of systems, hidden transmitters awakened. Beings from every corner of the galaxy began receiving fragmented messages, visions, histories, languages long thought dead. Elias appeared on screens, his message short and unwavering. My name is Elias Ward. I'm a human, and I carry the memory of a civilization your leaders tried to erase. He held up a crystallized neural shard glowing with Caltha's golden light. I didn't come to fight, but I won't let her legacy be silenced again. The spark had passed on. Not into machines, not into weapons. But into a human. And that
changed everything. More than human. Elias
stood at the edge of a new world, literally. The planet was once known only as E903 in old imperial records. A dead rock orbiting a red dwarf, forgotten in a system no one had cared about for centuries. But now it was the heart of a movement. Remnants from dozens of systems had gathered here. Refugees, scientists, outcasts, and rebels. Beings who had felt the pulse of Keltha had sent ripples across the galaxy. They came not because Elias had summoned them, but because something inside them had been reawakened. Hope. And with that came danger. The Syndicate had declared Elias a galactic threat, a living core carrier. There were bounties on his head, so high even the most loyal of his old allies had gone silent, but he didn't run. He built. The massive chamber beneath the mountain wasn't like the old labs. This one thrummed with life. Machines hummed beside grown vines. Ancient alien tech, fused with modern human design. Where once there was silence, now there was collaboration. Elias walked through the main corridor, neural shards hanging from his neck. Keltha's light still glowing softly inside it. She didn't speak often, but sometimes when he needed it most, her voice would whisper in his thoughts. Not commands, no warnings. Just presence. Guidance. Even in death, she had become part of something greater. At the far end of the facility, Sarah waited. There's been a signal, she said as Elias approached. From who? Not who, what? She led him to a console. Across the screen, unfamiliar glyphs flickered, patterns not seen since the fall of Keltha's people. It was a transmission, not from any ship, not from any world, but from one of the original cores. Elias leaned forward. I thought the others were destroyed. Apparently not all, Sarah said quietly. This one, it's waking up. But it's in hostile territory, in a Syndicate-controlled world. Elias stared at the data, his jaw tightening. It's calling the carrier. To you. That night, Elias sat alone in his chamber, watching the stars from a window cut high into the stone. His thoughts drifted back to Earth before all this began. Back to when he was a weapons engineer working for the highest bidder. He had once believed in control, in keeping dangerous knowledge buried. Now he was fighting to let it free, and yet a question still haunted him. What did it mean to be human now? Was it the body? The blood? Or was it the ability to choose truth over comfort? To stand when silence would be safer? Keltha's whisper stirred again, soft and warm. You are what you fight for, Elias. He nodded slowly. Then stood. The drop ship landed under cover of darkness, bypassing Syndicate scans, using a hacked signal buried in the ancient core frequencies. Elias and a small team, Sarah, 2 remnant techs, and a human pilot named Ryle, moved through a forgotten sewer grid beneath the city. The core was beneath a Syndicate research center, long thought inactive. But the readings were clear. The signal was alive. They reached the chamber, and there it was, a second core, larger than the first. Damaged, but pulsing faintly. Its surface flickered as Elias stepped close. It recognized him. His neural shard pulsed in return, and a connection surged through him. Images. Voices. A council of Keltha's people long ago, debating not war but preservation. They had seen the rise of violence, of domination. They had built the cores not to fight, but to remember, and to give others the chance to choose better paths. And now, this core offered Elias the same choice. He could absorb it, fusing it with Kelthus shard, gaining even more knowledge, more influence, or he could release it, let it go to the network. Let the knowledge spread freely without control. Without guardians, Sarah's voice behind him was tense. If you release it, they'll know instantly. The syndicate will come for us in full force. Elis stared at the core. No more secrets, he said, then placed his hand against the surface. Golden light exploded outward, brighter than before. The core shattered not into dust, but into data. It flowed through Elis's like lightning into satellites, into old tech, into the stars themselves. The truth was free. They barely escaped. By the time the syndicate responded, Elias's team was already back in orbit. But their faces said it all: shock, fear, and something else. Resolve. The entire galaxy had felt it. Not just knowledge this time. Awakening. People were questioning. Uprisings began to ripple in slave worlds. Soldiers started abandoning posts. New factions declared independence, not because Elias told them to, but because the truth, Keltha protected, had finally reached them. Months later, Elias stood before a crowd, not as a leader, but as a man changed. Behind him, a monument stood, a carved obelisk of white stone, with Keltha's name etched at the top, glowing in soft gold. Below it, in a dozen languages, she was enslaved. She was forgotten. She was silenced, but she rose, and in rising, reminded us who we are. Elias stepped forward. He took a deep breath. You've asked what we are now. Are we rebels? Are we enemies of the order? Are we trying to burn it all down? He shook his head. No, we're just people. People who remembered that freedom doesn't start with power. It starts with the truth, with the courage to know, to learn, to ask, and yes, sometimes to fight. He glanced up at the stars. I didn't set out to be more than human, but maybe that's what being human truly is. The crowd was silent. Then it rose, not in a riot, but in unity. Keltha's voice whispered one last time. We were never lost. We were only waiting to be remembered. And now they were the end.